The Inch Bag, fact, fiction, or myth, coming up. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Man, as always, I'm stoked to see you. So we're talking about the Inch Bag, the I'm never coming home bag. Does it exist? If it does exist, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And if it doesn't exist, why do we talk about it? And where do we go from there? All right, let's get this thing going, man. So the Inch Bag has been in popular culture. This phraseology, Inch Bag, has been in popular culture, for a pretty long time. And I think I got to tell you right now, it doesn't exist. So I don't want to say that as what we have in our mind, right? I don't think it exists. What we have in our mind, because I think what we have in our mind is a guy putting on a backpack that probably doesn't weigh that much, and he's able to head off into the wilderness, right? And head off out into the woods, maybe with friends and family, maybe like Wolverine style, right? And just heading off into the rugged wilderness and surviving for the rest of his life. And why is he doing this? He's getting off grid like this because of economic collapse, because of a political collapse, because the whole society has just gone to hell in a handbag. I don't know, maybe some other personal reason, right? So they're getting off, and he knows that he has to close the door, and he's leaving for the last time, and he's never coming back home, and he's doing this all on foot. And I think that's what we have in mind. I think that's what we have in mind because of things that are out there in popular culture, like in the movies or books, and other forms of media. And I think it's doing all of us a disservice who do appreciate getting off and out into the wilderness, because we know that there's only so much that we can put in our packs. So let's break this down a little bit more in detail, and we'll see if we can make something like this exist. So I think, truthfully, you can. It's just not going to be in a bag. So, just over 100 years ago, when the westward expansion really started to kick off, and you had entire families and communities who were pushing west across the United States. They did so, and they were never going back home. They knew that they were never going back home. But they didn't do it on foot. Right? They did it using covered wagons, and they did it in a community of people. And that's for a variety of reasons, not just protection, but also resources that they were taking out there with them. And along before, we'll call it 1820s, 1830s at the height. I think 1836 was probably the height of the rendezvous period. And it still went on a little bit further later, and of course it was happening. We had a lot of rendezvous happen before. You have the mountain man, right? And this is just popular American culture. Every culture around the world has their own stories of similar explorations and explorers. You'd have the mountain man who's often sometimes trapping by himself, often to some pretty wild country. And he was able to live off of the land without a whole lot of resources, but he wasn't never coming home. He was going out and coming back, and trading along the way. So I can't tell you it's going to be possible. Let's think about some other things. You talk about people who are setting out on the ocean blue, exploring the world, maybe never coming home. So they carried entire shiploads of food and water and other resources, all their supplies that they needed. So I think, really, for the most part, it's not going to be done by the average person. Even the above average person is going to have a hard time lasting more than 90 days and lasting more than 3 months. And this is even evident looking at popular TV shows today, like Alone, right? People get off and they're trying to live on their own with a minimal amount of supplies, what they have on their pack, and they struggle to do it. And it's not just the the psychology of it. It's the physical aspect of it as well, because they're not getting enough nutrition in them, because they don't have enough resources on their person to be able to survive more than 100 days. You know, if they can't do it, and most of these people are trained survivalists, even, you know, going back into the last 2 centuries, people who are getting off into the wilderness, into the woods, if you can't sustain yourself and be able to cover everything from medical scenarios to being able to maintain, you know, proper nutrition, you know, repairs of your equipment, to be able to create a shelter that will sustain, you know, the natural environment, you're not going to make it. So you need more than just you. Can you do it? I think somebody can do it. I think somebody did do it. But I think we're fooling and deceiving ourselves if we approach survival, or if we approach just getting off into some backcountry. You know, most backpackers who are extremely experienced, they may plan, you know, a 10-day expedition. You know, 10-day no resupply. I'm going out for 5 days. I'm coming back for 5 days. 10 days, and it's going to be probably a 75-liter pack, the equivalent of, you know, if you're military, you know, a large Alice rucksack or a large Molly pack. You know, 10 days, and that's minimal supplies in there. You know, maintaining, you know, people start counting grams when they're backpacking for 10 days, because you know that too much weight is going to destroy your body. So this is another thing, right? So how much weight can you put on your person and sustain it for the rest of your life so that you don't have to come home, right? I know from experience that I can pack, you know, 90 pounds on my back and go 20 miles. I can do that. I'm not feeling good the next day. I'm not feeling good the next day at all. But I have done it. I can go, you know, probably forever with 25, 30 pounds on my back without too much of a care, cause, or concern. But what am I going to get in that 25 or 30 pounds? Not that much at the end of the day. Certainly not enough to never come home. So, yeah, it's just something I was thinking about today. So knowing this, what do we put in our pack? How much do we put in it? And what do we do when it comes for gear storage in the event of disasters, or if I do want to take off in an expedition? I'm going to give you a couple things you can do right now. Number one, get this mindset out of your head. You can't last forever by yourself with something that you have on your back. So create a system on your shelf, in your garage, out in the cellar, and use some tough boxes. And although it may be cool to use like the standardized, you know, green military tough boxes or something, I prefer see-through boxes, something I can see into. They're not always the most durable, but worst case, I'm going to put small ones inside my big ones. I have a box for everything imaginable. So you need a box for first aid, right? You need a box that deals with nothing but food type items. That even is just, we're talking kitchen, you need a kitchen, right? And then everything else that you need to be able to procure, you know, treat, cure, cook, the whole 9 yards. You need everything for food. You need a box for fire. You need a box to be able to take care of things like water resources, shelter, communication, navigation, you know, again, you know, first aid, self-defense. So you need to think large scale. How can I break all of these things down and then pack them for whatever scenario that you want to plan for? I'm not going to call anybody out if they have a tinfoil hat on today. But you need to have all these things planned out and prepared for. And then if you need to, you can grab and throw in the back of your truck if you needed to. Or if you're going to go out backpacking, you can go out to what you have on the shelf, pull off what you need. It's like your own REI. So you just grab on the shelf, throw it in your backpack, get in the truck, go off and head off into some woods and have a good time. So you can do that, and you can be prepared like this. That way you're able to navigate anything from a small day hike or an overnighter or 72 hours or whatever the case is. So there's another approach that you can take, and that's a little bit more of a realistic one, I think. let's have, you know, in your car, you know, in your trunk, you know, some kind of a get home bag. You know, maybe it is just an extra pair of socks with a small backpack, some water, some food resources, you know, some first aid supplies, whatever it is. You know, that in the case or in the event that of a vehicle breakdown and you don't have any cell phone service or whatever, you can at least pick up and start moving from there. And then why I said put in shoes is because a lot of y'all, you know, you live in warmer weather and you run around in flip-flops, and man, you don't want to live like Jimmy Buffett, you know, and blowing your flip-flop out walking on the road. Now, when it comes to weight, you know, and managing how much weight that you can take and put on your back, you know, try to not plan for more than like 40 pounds. Initial startup weight, right? We're talking, you know, the very first day, day one, you have 40 pounds on your back at the most, which is way too much depending on what you're going to try to do. And then because you have food and water in there, right? And so each day your weight is going down. Your weight is going down. And so maybe at the end of it, you have, you know, 30 pounds, which is still a heavy pack, you know, depending on what you're doing, what kind of terrain that you're trying to navigate through. And so really that leads us into what can you do to manage and truly create an inch bag for yourself that is legitimate. And here it is, because it's not going to be in your bag. It's not going to be in your bag. It's going to be up here in your brain housing group, and your ability to take what you have, all your knowledge, and apply it into skills, into practical skills. The more that you know, the less that you need. If you don't know how to trap, if you don't know how to fish, if you don't know how to go foraging, if you don't know how to build shelters, if you don't know anything about first aid, if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know how to read the weather, you're not going to survive without a doubt, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I promise you. So you need to be able to put all these things into your, you know, mental, you know, kit bag up here in your brain housing group and be able to apply them. And that means that you need to get out and rehearse. You have to get out and rehearse, man. Rehearsals are everything. They are everything. So you need to go and get what you think that you need. Go out and start practicing. Practicing building up shelters. Practicing making fires. And don't just do it when there's good weather out, because the 365, baby, you're never going home again. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do when it starts snowing and the freezing temperatures and the rain is pouring down and it's sleeting on you? What are you going to do then? Hope you enjoyed the content of this video and this conversation. If you did, make sure you like it. Leave some comments down below and we can keep this conversation rolling. And man, if you haven't already done so and you want to stay up to date on some future content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell, and then we will see you on the flip side. And as always, my brothers and my sisters, until then, we'll see you